wrote a memorandum to McCulloch reporting that, on December 13, 1943, Mr. E. H. Land called me to one side and said he had a secret to tell me about a new photographic camera in which you simply photograph a subject, and from that same camera roll comes out a finished picture. On December 27th, Richard Kriebel, a Polaroid public relations man, executed a handwritten memorandum, witnessed by McCulloch, that described what Land had told him. On December 10, 1943, at his home, Edwin H. Land disclosed to me a novel self-developing film, which, when mounted in a camera of novel construction, is adapted to produce a positive print shortly after exposure of the film within the camera. The print is of such character as to require no fixing or other treatment after removal from the camera. The positive print is stripped from the remainder of the film within the camera, or as it emerges from the camera. Land was, of course, eager to start work on the project as soon as he returned from Santa Fe. He had great confidence in what could be achieved by following his own personal version of the scientific method. If you are able to state a problem, any problem, and if it is important enough, then the problem can be solved. Long before he puts the problem into words, the scientist knows how to confine his questions to ones that he thinks are answerable. He wouldn't be able to formulate them otherwise. His taste, discernment, wisdom, shrewdness, and experience have established within him an inner knowledge of what is feasible. However, you must pick a problem that is manifestly important. It must be important to you and your colleagues, and more important than anything else. You can't necessarily separate the important from the impossible. If the problem is clearly very important, then time dwindles and all sorts of resources which have evolved to help you handle complex situations seem to fall into place, letting you solve problems you never dreamed you could solve. Experience, however, had taught Land that the path leading to reaching a goal was not always a direct one. The ideal system he envisioned during his walk in Santa Fe was simple and elegant, but at least initially unachievable. Expose the film, pass it through a pair of steel rollers, then when it came out of the camera, you'd have a simple, dry, finished picture. In what Land later called his 1944 fantasy dream system, the integral film would require no timing and no peeling apart. Many years later, William McCune recalled his vivid memory of the dream system that Land described to him in 1944 during a moment's break from their work on the heat-homing missile. A camera, small and light, that while technically complicated would be easy to use. The operator would compose the desired picture, press the button, and out would come a finished, dry picture in full color. Notwithstanding Land's prodigious confidence and ability, it would be decades before such a system could be perfected. The disclosures collected by McCulloch involved the stripping or peeling apart of the positive print from the rest of the film, rather than having the prints emerge intact from the camera. This was a point of departure on a long road ahead. Land later acknowledged, "You always start with a fantasy. Part of the fantasy technique is to visualize something as perfect. Then, with the experiments, you work back from the fantasy to reality, hacking away at the components." Not that accepting the unavoidability of this evolutionary process was easy for Land. As McCune confided, "Everything we've done has always been a compromise to him, which has been almost intolerable." Within days of returning to Cambridge from Santa Fe, Land assigned one of his laboratory assistants, Eudoxia Muller, to begin conducting experiments. Muller was sequestered in a separate section of Land's laboratory at 730 Main Street in Cambridge and put to work in complete secrecy on the project Land dubbed SX-70. At the time, Land had been numbering all of his special research projects sequentially. When he began this investigation, 70 was the next number up. Land decided to begin the investigation by working with aspects of the imaging process Polaroid had developed for its vectograph system. On December 18th, Muller did some rudimentary experiments, according to Mr. Land's instructions, on transferring an image from a negative to a positive directly by pressing them together with the help of a squeegee. It would be the first minute step in what Muller later characterized as a research program of 4,990 steps. Land undertook nothing less than a revolutionary advance in photography, dispensing with the many steps required to develop a conventional film negative and print a positive. Generally speaking, film is comprised of a plastic base on which is coated a layer of light-sensitive silver halide, generally silver bromide crystals, suspended in gelatin. The scientific theory behind how silver halide crystals on a film surface operate to form a photochemical image is quite complex, but a readily understandable version was provided to the readers of Scientific American in April 1947. Each crystal is equipped with a trigger, which is set for development when light falls upon it in taking the picture. When the film is exposed to the lights and the darks of the scene photographed, the triggers are set in the white areas but not in the black. Land referred to these triggers as active centers, or sensitivity specks. The pattern of light reacting with millions of crystals leaves a real, although at this point invisible image, within the photosensitive layer corresponding to the amount of radiation reaching each individual crystal. This image is called the latent image, and controls the rest of the process of making a photograph. The first step in making a picture from an exposed negative is to develop the latent image. To accomplish this, the film is put into a developer's solution, in which the crystals in the exposed areas are chemically converted into metallic silver, forming the black of the negative. Next in the process, a solvent bath gets rid of the unexposed crystals by dissolving them, to leave areas of transparency in the plastic base. The result is the familiar black and white negative.